When I was 10, my sister and I shared a room together, but in separate beds. I didn't have a phone or an alarm clock at that age, but my sister had a phone. She was asleep at the time, so she didn't know what happened, and I didn't know what time it was. It was around 3 or 4 a.m. when I woke up to some strange noise in the middle of the night. It sounded like scrummaging around in my room. I pulled my blanket down quietly and saw this creature. I have no way to describe it other than that thing that says, "My precious." I've never watched the movie or seen it as a kid either, but it looked just like it, and it was looking around the stuff in my room. I got so scared and couldn't wake my sister without her hearing me, so I was quiet and covered my head with the blanket. After what felt like 5 minutes passed by of listening to it, and I checked again. It's still looking around my room and my things. I was absolutely terrified and wanted to cry and scream, but I didn't want to risk it. So I kept hiding and checking about 3 more times. At one point, I pinched myself extremely hard to bruise to check in for the morning to see if I was actually awake or if it was a dream. I made sure not to yell and made sure I pinched hard enough to bruise or bleed. The last time, it grabbed one of my CD discs covers and dropped it aloud on my floor, and it stopped and ran fast out of my room, and I heard its steps running out. I was absolutely shocked, but I stood quiet the entire night in case it came back. When the sun finally came up, I uncovered the blankets from my head. I saw my CD disc on the floor. My heart sank, and then I looked at my arm and saw a big bruise on it indicating I was awake and it wasn't a dream. To this day, 15 years later, I have no idea what it was I saw. It was terrifying looking. Not human, but like the body of a weird creature, human-like thing. I did tell my mom about it, and what's creepier is how her and her siblings saw something just like it in a village in Mexico they used to live in as kids. It entered her room too. A lot of creepy things have happened in my house, and I will update on stories. But I can say for now that I'm 25 and have owned dogs for the past 3 years. Creepy things have never stopped since I got my dog, which I also find weird. And also, it wasn't my imagination because a lot of things have happened. Someone else in the house saw it too. I just hope it doesn't come back. So it all started a couple weeks ago. My sister was in the back seat coming down the driveway after getting groceries with my grandma and my mom. She saw something run in our front yard from our bedroom window to the tree next to the driveway, and it disappeared after hitting the tree. It was about as tall as the lowest branch on the tree, about 6 to 7 feet. It was also on all fours, with these distorted, bent, segmented front legs like a mantis almost. It was just a black silhouette with no face. A week later, I was extremely angry and was trying to cool off, so I went outside to the sunroom. I sat on the floor so I couldn't let my phone charge while I was trying to calm down. At about 12 to 1 a.m. at this point, after a few minutes, I started to see something moving outside the window out of the corner of my eye. I didn't think much of it until I turned around to get a good look, and there it was. But this wasn't 7 feet tall at all. Not like the one my sister had described. This was almost as tall as the top of the window, which is 9 to 10 feet tall. It was solid black, but I could see it had some sort of aura around it. It was on all fours, with those distorted mantis-like front legs. One of them raised, about to strike the window. I saw its face, or what it had of a face. Red eyes, not glowing ones, just blood red, and teeth about 5 inches in length, just like its claws. It sent me into a panic attack, and I suffer from panic disorder. After I saw it, it turned and ran in the direction of the woods. I ran into my mom's room in shock. I whispered, "There's something outside," while crying and shaking in panic. My eyes still wide from the jarring image. I ran into my room and sat on the bed, my face facing the wall. My mom went outside to check, and there was nothing to be seen. No tracks to be found. Absolutely nothing. I haven't seen it since. I don't know what it is or what it wants, but I know it doesn't have good intentions. My gym teacher has a lot of good and true scary stories, so I'm gonna tell you one. Some boys were heading to a young men's camp, and the bishop tells the boys, "Don't look out the window, and do what you do when someone tells you not to look out the window. You look out the window." Anyway, the boys looked out the window, and people are chasing them on all fours. The car's going over 50 miles an hour, and there are people chasing them. The people had pure red eyes and keep getting closer to the car. The boys start to freak out, and soon enough, one hits in the middle of the road. The bishop tells the driver to hit it. The driver is confused, but they hit it. Its head crashed into the dashboard, called everyone by their first, middle, and last name, and said something only the boys know about, and the bishop threw the head out the window, and the skinwalkers disappeared. When I was 8, I was playing with my friends in the woods. We were playing tag, and then I blinked and all of my friends were gone. Me and my friends watched a lot of YouTube videos that were based on pranks. But we cared about each other a lot, so much that we couldn't pull a prank on each other, not even once. I got really scared at that point. I kept trying to find them and find a way out of the woods. Suddenly I started bleeding, and I heard screeching noises. It was pitch black outside. I'm trapped in the woods, and then I saw a girl. She looked like my friend Julian. She was wearing a pink dress. I ran towards her and said I finally found her. She didn't answer. And then she looked back at me, and it wasn't Julian. It was some creature, and I knew I had to get out of there. I ran until I saw the light of my house. I ran towards the light and made it out of the woods. Then I heard something mimicking Julian's voice from the woods, telling me to come here, and there was something I needed to see. I'm never going back there again. I live in a country small town in Australia. To paint a visual, the town I live in is set out on giant hills, surrounded by a lake and bushland, in which you need to cross a bridge that runs parallel between the lake and giant coal mine power stations. That is our town. It was a Sunday night, around 8 p.m. I had just finished work on a fish and chip shop a town over from mine. As it was summer, so it was still light outside, and it wouldn't get dark until about 9:30, 10 p.m. I got in my car and was driving home as I started coming down towards the 4 lanes next to the power stations. I saw a shadow up ahead on the right, running fast along the side wire fence of the power station car park. I immediately slowed down. I thought it was a kangaroo because they have tendencies to run out in front of your car. But this thing looked kind of like a dog. I thought at first, I remember thinking, what is a dog doing all the way out here? Then as it came closer, it was running on all fours, kind of like a gallop, straight towards my car. Then it diagonally leaps across the 2 lanes leading out of town, and on the 2 lane in front of me. I could see this thing clearly. It wasn't a dog. It was so much bigger than a dog. This creature had the exact face and head shape of a dog, but no fur instead. It was like extremely pale human skin. This thing was so close to my car, I could see its giant blue veins down its body to its long tail, as well as every joint moving in its legs as I ran. It then went across the road in front of me and leaped over the guardrail on the left, like it was nothing. It's times like this I stop. All I could hear was the blood pumping through my heart, in my head, left thinking, what was that thing? I didn't realize my car was at a complete stop in the middle of the road, and then my body just woke back up, like a jolt of this overwhelming dread or just pure fear. My blood felt like ice. I immediately locked my doors and slammed my foot down, speeding home. When I got home, I was so shaken up and trembling. When I told my family, the only way I could fully explain exactly what it looked like was that it were a wolf from Harry Potter. But my father just laughed at me, joked if I had been on drugs or something. No one to this day believes me, nor have I heard of anyone else seeing it. Even though this happened years ago, it still terrifies me to walk my dogs down to the lake on my own. I lived in Ronan, Montana for a while, on a Salish Indian reserve, and it was and still is the most beautiful part of the Rockies I've ever seen. I currently live/grew up in Colorado. Now, when I first moved there, I went there to do job corporations, to be a diesel mechanic. It was a vocational school. Now, right when I got there, it got weird during orientation. One of the main concerns they expressed was, 1. Don't go on the reserve after sunset for your own safety. 2. When on the reserve, do not disrespect the land, litter, or leave anything unnatural there. Now, this kid, Sean, was from Colorado, also was there. On the same flight, and actually my roommate, he looked at me and whispered weird. We became really good friends. We began to notice the natives wouldn't go out at dark. They would stick to light stops. My first full night there, I was a newbie. I had to wake up at 4:30 a.m. to prepare breakfast. My first night, I dead asleep. Shake. Wake up, bud. Is it time to wake up? I lazily crawl out of my bunk and notice Sean was still asleep. I put my flip-flops on and peeled down the very long dorm hallway. Oh, there's someone at the end. Wyatt was meant to wake me up, but I noticed the silhouette doesn't move at all. The dorm is oddly dark. I walk down the hall and start to feel like I'm walking in mud. I get to the center room, Wyatt's room. He is dead asleep. His alarm clock reads 3:08 a.m. It's still there, probably 75 feet from me. I start to walk back with my eyes glued on it. I get back to my doorway and I swear to God I hear sprinting, and I see it sprinting towards me the second I pass the threshold from my door. Freeze, the stomping stopped. I flew back across the hall out of nowhere, maybe 10 feet. I couldn't scream. I get up and try to wake Sean, but it wasn't happening. I clambered into my bed shaking. I wake up to Wyatt actually waking me an hour later, confused. Dream? Come to find out, people don't leave their bed pods after 12. Part 2, Skinwalker. It's been a hot minute here for 4 months. It's haunted on the reserve lake trail. From the other side of the creek, it separates the campus from it. I've been sleeping with this Salish native who grew up down the road. We like to go out there and sit by the lake and watch the otters. But she'd never stay out long enough for the sun to touch the mountains. She'd freak out we have to go. So one day Sean was out there with us and we were smoking cigarettes and skipping rocks. Truly a peaceful place. She looks to our left and sees a deer, usually close to us. Kind of like it hadn't noticed us. She started chanting in Salish tongue and starts to panic. Then out of nowhere she starts crying. Run, and she bolts off. Me and Sean stand up confused, but something about this deer. It stared at us, not just like at us, but at our souls. We both started feeling really uneasy and tried to scare it off. It wouldn't move. We then noticed the sun was at the mountains. We started walking back. The deer followed, 15 feet behind, probably less. We started picking up pace, but then we saw a raven sitting on a fence post not 4 feet away from the trail. It cawed. The deer was gone. We should have seen its direction right, but it vanished. We still had half a mile left, but we really screwed up. It got weird and it got foggy, so we couldn't see more than, 20 feet. Then we heard and saw it. We smelt something like dead animal. Off to the left of the trail, we hear what sounds like tearing and breaking, being ballsy, white boys in good shape. We make a few steps. We make out a figure, no clothes, and on the ground. Antlers. Josh, that's a deer. Sean whispers. I know. And something was tearing at it. We started walking backwards, eyes locked. Sean trips on a rock and quietly, like very quiet, says ouch. It's too silent though. Whatever it was stopped doing what it was doing, as if listening. Maybe it could hear us breathing. The thing stood up, its legs were, and it was really long and skinny. It was on 2 legs. The arms folded down, abnormally long. First thing that came to mind was the ice cream man from the movie Legion. No clothes. Its head turned our way, jaw mouth. Normal, it smiled. And I'm not screwing around. It waved at us. Terror, pure terror filled us and we bolted. We sprinted and did not stop. It sounded like the road was chasing behind us, cracking, creeping, bushes rustling. We did not look back. We get close enough and start screaming for help. Some of the staff rush out to meet us. We both cried in instructors' arms for a good half hour. As we connected with them in our spirit, they saw a taller, skinny man chasing us, and they said it darted off towards the left into the dark and the fog. My girl was there too. She knew what we saw. They all did. Come to find out, if you lived on that land, you've seen him. They call him a skinwalker. He appears as something you normally find pleasing and twist it into fear to get to your flesh. I never went back out there again, but I'd sit on the other side of the creek and watch. I know we watched each other. It was either a skinwalker or whatever is attached. I just hope I never see it again.